Hello everyone. Today in this presentation, myself Ghada, along with my colleagues Shamma and Sarah, will be discussing the cultural and cross-cultural context of international human resources management. In this presentation, we will be going through Introduction to Cross-Cultural Management Research, Cross-Cultural Management Studies, Insights from Hofstede Study, the Globe Study and other cultural dimensions, the evolution of the cultures in international business, and finally the discussion questions. We'll start with a quick introduction to cross-cultural management research, starting from the foreign environment consideration, which is recognized as a pivotal issue in international management literature, particularly in relation to professional employees and managers who are working abroad, where they're facing differing influences compared to their home environment. The environmental analysis is crucial for identifying HR issues in international operations, with disciplines such as intercultural comparative research in Europe and cross-cultural management in English-speaking countries being central. The goals of cross-cultural management studies encompass a description and comparison of organizational behavior across cultures, aiming at explaining and enhancing interaction among individuals from diverse cultural backgrounds. The challenges and criticism. Despite the importance of cross-cultural management, it actually faces critiques for its theoretical foundation and methodological weaknesses, and the ambiguous definition of culture as an explanatory variable. The importance of understanding culture. There are various perspectives on culture, including Hofstede mental programming and Sheehan levels of culture, emphasize the need for a clear definition to advance intellectual research effectively. The aim of the cross-cultural management studies is to describe and compare working behavior across cultures with implications for improving cross-cultural interactions. Hofstede study is a pioneering research on cultural dimensions. Its positions and the values of key cultural concepts focusing on conscious and unconscious variables. There were 4 cultural dimensions that were identified. First is the power distance, which reflects acceptance of power inequality and impacts organizational structures. The second one is uncertainty avoidance, which indicates response to ambiguous situation, influences innovation and risk-taking. Third one is masculinity versus femininity, which contrasts orientation towards success and quality of life. Finally, individualism versus collectivism, which highlights the preference for self-reliance versus group cohesion. The country-specific result is visualized using coordinate systems, demonstrating cultural distance between countries across dimensions. And despite critiques, Hofstede dimension remains influential for understanding and navigating cross-cultural complexity. Now moving to few insights from Hofstede study, starting with the definition of country clustering, which is countries that are categorized based on dimensions like individualism versus collectivism and power distance, revealing cultural clusters with significant implications. Example findings, we have first the Anglo-Saxon versus South Asian. Anglo-Saxon countries like the US, UK and Australia exhibit individualist behavior with low power distance, while on the other hand South Asian countries like Singapore, Hong Kong and Taiwan demonstrate collectivist value and high power distance. On the other hand, we have the German-speaking versus Scandinavian. German-speaking countries show strong uncertainty avoidance and relatively low power distance, while Scandinavian countries exhibit contrasting characteristics. Hofstede study, although influential, it faces criticism regarding its determinist and universalist approach, potential Western bias, and delimitation of countries rather than cultures. Now moving to the Globe study and other cultural dimensions. The Globe study was initiated by Robert J. House in 1991. It explores global leadership and organizational behavior effectiveness across cultures, and it comprises of 3 phases. First is development, then data gathering, and finally analysis of leadership effects. The key questions that were explored: are there universally effective leadership behaviors across cultures? How do cultures attribute influence leadership effectiveness? And finally, what impact do sociocultural variables have on economic success? The cultural dimensions of the globe study includes the institutional and in-group collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, power distance, gender equality, assertiveness, performance orientation, and human orientation. The results and reflections. The data was collected from 62 countries and various industries. It provides refined cultural dimensions compared to Hofstad's study, and it addresses methodological challenges but faces critiques regarding scale, validity, and industry focus. To compare the globe study with other studies, first Trompinar and Hamdan Turner, there are 7 dimensions covering relationships, time concepts, and nature. Next, we have Hall and Hall, which has 4 dimensions focusing on communication styles, spatial orientation, and time concepts. The challenges and future directions of the globe study. The criticism includes static cultural representation and limited explanatory power, and it calls for qualitative research and consideration of task-specific cultural dynamics. The implications for managers' practices. Understanding cultural distinctions crucial for effective leadership and organizational performance. Ongoing debate and research needed to adapt to dynamic cultural shifts. The evolution of cultures in international business. First, static versus dynamic outlook. Discussion shifts to how cultures evolve over time. Controversy surrounds the idea of cultural convergence versus divergence. Second, convergence versus divergence. Convergence implies cultural similarities due to globalization and EU integration. Divergence suggests enduring cultural differences necessitating local adaptation. Research findings. Studies vary in conclusion. Macro-level studies tend to find convergence, while micro-level studies lead toward divergence. Organizations are becoming more similar in process but retain meaningful employee behavior differences. Hybridization of cultures. Combination of cultural elements lead to new distinctions and hybrid cultures. Translation regions blur national borders, posing challenges and opportunities for human resources management. Intercultural changes. Demographic shifts like those seen in Generation Y impact professional relationship and employee preference globally. Aging societies introduce new dynamics to workforce management. Challenges for M&Es. Some argue that culture is too blunt for decision-making in multinational enterprise. Others suggest that cross-cultural differences may have positive impacts on M&E operations.
Now let's talk about culture. Culture refers to the beliefs, traditions, art, music, language, social norms, and behaviors that characterize a particular group of people or society. It defines the way of life of a community, including its values, symbols, and practices that are passed down from generation to the next. Culture shapes individuals' identities, influences their perspectives, and provides a framework for social interaction within a society. It can be expressed through various forms and it changes over time through interactions with other cultures. Culture plays a fundamental role in shaping human societies and their development. Culture can be conceptualized through many different ways. Some of those ways are shared beliefs and values, symbolic systems, power and inequality, adaptation and change, and finally, cultural transmission. Shared beliefs and values are fundamental aspects of culture. They shape the way members of a society perceive and interact with the world around them. These beliefs and values often serve as the foundation of social norms, customs, traditions, and institutions within a particular group. Moving on, symbolic systems in culture are dynamic, playing an important role in how individuals make sense of the world, construct identities, and participate in social life. They evolve over time in response to cultural, technological, and historical changes, reflecting the complexities of human communication and expression. Power and inequality are important elements within culture, influencing social structures, interactions, and opportunities within a society. These dynamics are often shaped by historical, economic, political, and cultural factors. Adaptation and change. As societies continuously evolve in response to internal and external influences, cultural adaptation refers to the process by which individuals and groups adjust their behaviors, beliefs, values, and practices in order to thrive in new or changing environments. Cultural transmission refers to the process by which knowledge, beliefs, values, and traditions are passed down from one generation to the next within a society or cultural group. It is a fundamental aspect of human culture and plays an important role in shaping individual identities. Geert Hofstede's cross-cultural management study is one of the most influential works in the field of intercultural communication and management. In the 1970s, Hofstede conducted a large-scale research project at IBM that aimed to identify and measure cultural differences among employees in different countries. The study focused on identifying dimensions along which cultures vary and developed a framework for understanding cultural differences. Hofstede's insights are power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term versus short-term orientation, and finally indulgence versus restraint that was added in 2010. Looking in detail into each insight, power distance refers to the extent to which less powerful members of institutions within a country expect and accept the power as distributed unequally. In societies with high power distance, there is a greater acceptance of hierarchical authority and centralized power structures. Whereas in societies with low power distance, there is a tendency to challenge authority and strive for more equal relationships. Individualism versus collectivism refers to the degree to which individuals in a society are integrated into groups. Individualistic societies prioritize individual goals, autonomy, and personal achievements, while collectivist societies emphasize group harmony, cooperation, and collective success. Masculinity versus femininity. Masculinity refers to the extent to which a society values masculine traits such as assertiveness, competition, and ambition. In societies with high masculinity, there tends to be a greater emphasis on achievement and success. Femininity, on the other hand, refers to the extent to which a society values traditionally feminine traits. In societies with high femininity, there is often a greater emphasis on quality of life, relationships, and caring for others. Uncertainty avoidance refers to the extent to which members of a society feel uncomfortable with uncertainty and attempt to avoid such situations by implementing strict rules, regulations, and social norms. Long-term versus short-term orientation is a dimension that reflects the extent to which a society prioritizes long-term goals and values, such as persistence. On the other hand, short-term goals reflect things like quick results, respect for tradition, and social obligations. Indulgence versus restraint is our final point. Indulgent cultures will tend to focus more on individual happiness and well-being and leisure time, and there is more freedom and personal control. This is the opposite of restrained cultures where positive emotions are less freely expressed.
Let's start with the GLOBE study, a pivotal research initiative from 1991 by Robert J. House aimed at understanding cultural impacts on leadership globally. It's a collective effort of 170 researchers from 62 countries offering a diverse cultural perspective. The GLOBE study uses a longitudinal multi-phase approach, blending qualitative and quantitative methods. It consists of concept development data collection from managers worldwide and analysis of global leadership behavior. 9 cultural dimensions were identified by the GLOBE study, including power distance and uncertainty avoidance, enriching our understanding of how culture influences leadership and organizations. The study's findings highlight 10 cultural clusters showing that effective leadership varies significantly with culture. These insights aid multinational companies in crafting culturally sensitive management and training. Cross-cultural studies such as Hofstede's and the GLOBE offer invaluable advantages. They provide a strategic framework for understanding varied consumer behaviors and employee expectations globally. These insights are key to enhancing the management of multicultural teams and the development of globally competent leadership. However, these studies are not without their disadvantages. They can sometimes oversimplify the complexity of cultures, leading to stereotypes. There is also a risk of cultural bias, particularly from a Western perspective, which can skew models and their interpretations. To evaluate the impact and effectiveness of cross cultural studies, it is crucial to consider their applicability to specific contexts. We must recognize that culture is dynamic and changes over time, which means these models must adapt to remain relevant. It is also essential to question how these studies align with modern business practices in our rapidly evolving global marketplace.
This is the end of our presentation. Thank you for watching.